Welcome to the State of Innovation Summit. I'm Mia Parrish, and I am so excited to be moderating this event today. We have a full agenda for the next 90 minutes that we really hope will be informative and educational, as well as interesting for you. To make sure that we get through all of that, we are going to a Q&A format where you send us a question in the Q&A, and we'll make sure we follow up to get your questions answered after or during the event. Having served as the publisher at the Arizona Republic, I'm extremely interested in making sure that Arizona has the most vibrant economy possible. During the Great Recession, one thing we all learned is just how fragile and vulnerable our economy can be. As a result of that experience, Arizona business leaders came together to create the Partnership for Economic Innovation, which we call PEI. And today we have the chair of PEI, John Graham, with us to kick off the summit. John is the CEO of Sunbelt Holdings and a good friend. He's brought to life master plan communities and successful commercial real estate all across the state, but Mesa and Goodyear and everywhere in between. His ambition is, like so many of ours, that Arizona continues to thrive and that we together build a strong and diverse economy focused on the kinds of high wage jobs that our future industries will demand. So welcome to my friend John. Could you kick things off by telling us about why you are involved with this event today? Oop, John, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mia, for the very kind introduction. I'm honored to join you today. I grew up in Arizona. I love this state. I raised my children here, and I want to live here the rest of my life. And I want everyone to have the opportunity to be successful here. But right now, I think we're at a critical juncture when the decisions we make today will impact the potential for the next generation to access the jobs and opportunities of the future or be successful in building them here in Arizona. That is why we need a strong and diverse economy.
Do you mean the disruption that's gone on in the past year, the pandemic changing everything about our economy?
What disruption?
Yeah,
No,
yeah, nothing going on. It's
nothing at
quiet.
all. No. So even before the pandemic, our economy was changing. Automation is transforming manufacturing. Artificial intelligence is speeding up production and computation. Connected devices are changing how we think about healthcare. All of these things are laying the foundation for the new economy that's driven by technology. What COVID has done is proved to be a rather brutal accelerator for all of these forces. It's showing the underpinnings of how much our livelihoods are shaped by technology. We can either be beholden to these forces or innovate our thinking and strive to adapt and harness technology to spur the right kind of growth that will meet the needs of our communities.
And I'm guessing that PEI's namesake, economic innovation, is really a big part of this.
No question. Short answer, that's correct.
And what is PEI's role in building this new economy?
Thank you for the question. So in order to build a strong, vibrant economy for our future, we need to understand the needs of the future in terms of industry and workforce. Partnership for Economic Innovation was created to support and advocate for these needs and to demonstrate a path forward for our economy to accelerate by shifting our focus to innovation and technology development. As an advocate, PEI also strongly supports investing in the new economy initiative and funding for applied research.
You know, research is clear that diversifying our economy in focusing on technology are key, not only for protecting the regions from cyclical collapse, but also essential for sustaining a healthy economy that is able to grow and keep pace with what's ahead. You're an advocate for this, John, and making an incredibly important shift to an innovation economy. What is it that we can do right now to help?
Thank you for that question also. So Mia, it's so important to make the investment in the new economy initiative and to make additional funding in applied research. The investment of $46 million in ASU's engineering school and $3 to $5 million in applied research will make a huge impact on making the jump to the innovation economy. My fear is that if we stand still and we don't make the investment, we will not only have lost our chance to lead the nation, but we're falling and we'll be playing catch up for years to come.
No, I completely agree, John. It puts us in a hole, and we're already at risk of falling behind if we don't hurry up now. And it's not a large investment. I know we're going to hear more about PEI's applied research along with what ASU is doing to help coming up shortly. But another important part of the innovation conversation is jobs and job seekers. Share with me about the workforce side. What would the New Economy Initiative provide in terms of more pathways for Arizona workers?
Sure. I hear from my friends in industry and technology startups and in high-tech companies. We need more college graduates and skilled workers with technical certificates. These college graduates make more money and pay more taxes than people who don't graduate from college. The New Economy Initiative provides access to more students for technology and science education. What I've found on the PEI side is job seekers really need connecting the dots from education to career, especially at the pace industries are changing. So we've partnered with Maricopa County IDA to develop a platform called Pipeline AZ that paves the pathway for Arizonans to explore advanced industry opportunities here and see what additional training they might need to qualify for high-paying jobs. Pipeline will be used throughout Maricopa County Community College System to help students find jobs and to build a skill set for a successful career.
Yeah, John, before we move on, I know I'm kind of really beating on this, but supporting the New Economy Initiative and applied research to me is a really critical investment. And when I say investment, I use it purposefully. Why, in your mind, is that the case? What is it about making that investment at this time that's so important?
Yeah, so I think it's mission central, and I'm personally driven to see it come about. But this year, the legislature has an incredible opportunity to fund the New Economy Initiative and to continue funding Arizona's innovation ecosystem through applied research. These investments will provide an outstanding return. By investing in higher education, Arizona will have more students attending university with a focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. It will help students from across our state attain a college education through increased enrollment in distributed learning centers. These investments help all Arizonans, rural students, Latino students, and kids living in Tucson and Phoenix, and provides more teachers to address our teacher shortage. This investment is critically important, but don't just take it from me. Today, our summit will show you how ASU Science and Technology Centers will provide the research needed to build the products of the future. We have a panel discussion with PEI's applied research industry partners who will describe how they take fundamental research to the next level. And we will hear from an economist about the return on the investment, which is also very important. Mia, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
No, and thank you so much, John, for joining us to kick off the summit and for all you're doing in this space, which is so important. Before we dive into our panels, we have a short video from more local business leaders who wanted to share their needs and the way that they think about innovation and how it's helped them in the state bring more jobs and a creative economy. So sit back, enjoy, and let's watch.
I'm Brenda Schmidt, CEO of Coplex.
My name is Scott Carlson. I am the Director of Global Architecture and Head of Digital Assets and Blockchain at Kadelsky Security.
Cut. Done. Mic drop.
My name is Vicki Mayo, and I'm the CEO and founder of the Touchpoint Solution.
Let's do it to it. My name is Steve Moog, CEO and founder of ShareTech.
Chris Camacho, President and CEO of Greater Phoenix Economic Council.
You know, I started to launch businesses in Arizona at the age of 14. I don't know what other climate in the world makes it easy enough to start a business than right here in Arizona.
So Kadelsky is a Swiss company by origin. We needed a place in the United States to grow the US business that was friendly to the business, that allowed us to innovate, that allowed us to partner within the environment And I believe we found that here. We saw that Arizona was very business friendly for companies that like to innovate.
We're seeing Arizona become really ground zero for new technology development. And just as important, we're a place that technology companies can go to scale. So no longer do you have to leave Arizona to find the talent and infrastructure you need. You can do that here, from conception of idea all the way to a scaled, major multinational company. All that's happening here.
I'm so lucky now that there is innovation that's happening. There is talent that is here. There are people that are here. There are resources and organizations and initiatives like this that can help small businesses like mine, really become the unicorn, which is our goal.
There are lots of investors that are saying, I'm not going to invest on the coast. I'm not going to go to Silicon Valley. I'm not going to go to New York. I'm really leaning into those cities that are supporting this innovation economy and entrepreneurship ecosystem to look for investments.
So the state of Arizona has an excellent reputation for being business friendly, but by adding in additional funding, Arizona is going to become even more attractive to new companies coming in wanting to launch and build new ideas. And as a whole, Arizona is going to become even higher on that list of top tier locations to build, grow, and develop businesses.
I think we're just at almost a tipping point where we've got the infrastructure, we've got the energy, we've got the investment, that I think we'll get to a tipping point that will really put Phoenix on the map for being an innovation hub.
If we don't have continued investment from our legislative body, we will begin the slide back to become an average market. Unequivocally, that will happen. Our goal is that we see the other side. We make intentional investments that enable us to become a very competitive global marketplace for innovators, and that's what we should be focused on.
The thing that you get when you invest in people's brains is you allow them to think about the problem in different ways. If you don't know where to even start, it's really hard to innovate.
I would love to think that Arizona will continue to attract talent. And I think through initiatives like this of what is being created, that's going to open the eyes to a lot of other folks that are out there with ideas who maybe didn't know where to go.
Because innovation is what keeps our economy moving forward. Those milestone moments when you truly fundamentally change a person's life, that comes about because of innovation. Because you have taken that step, you've had that spark of light to look at something differently. By adding in additional funding, Arizona is going to become even more attractive to new companies coming in wanting to launch and build new ideas. If we continue putting more money and effort into the right things, the Valley of the Sun is going to be the brightest place in the world.
So that was really great. As you heard from some wonderful Arizona business leaders and friends, access to innovation is critical for attracting industry and critical for our ability to grow and be diverse going forward. Now let's dive a little deeper into how we can design an infrastructure needed to build talent around the industry needs. The New Economy Initiative provides funding for Arizona State University to create 5 new science and technology centers. These centers will partner with industry to conduct research and technology development to accelerate job creation and new companies for Arizona's economy. Each center will focus on an important aspect of what drives the new economy, like future communications technologies, enhancing human performance and healthcare, developing new energy technologies and delivery systems, and advanced manufacturing technologies to strengthen our critical aerospace and defense industries. Before I introduce our next panelists, let's watch a short video to set the stage for our discussion and to see what the University Innovation in action looks like.
Innovation. Hi, Michael Crow here, president of ASU. Innovation is critical to the success of our society in all things. New medical technology, new communications technology, new ways to teach, new ways to learn, all these things. And what we found here at ASU, and what's so important to us, is that we're finding ways to take a world-class research university and connect it with everyone. That's a process of cultural evolution and innovation. That's a process of technological innovation. That's a process of changing how we're doing things. And so we're very excited about our ranking for the 6th year in a row as #1 in innovation. And what it means is we're going to be able to reach more people with more teaching, learning, and discovery empowerment using every innovation imaginable. So that's what this is all about. And I just want to say thank you to the teams at ASU that have really been able to make this happen.
So if you hadn't heard before, obviously ASU has been #1 in innovation for 6 years in a row. And it's something we're really proud of, but it's more than billboards and bus sides. That ranking talks about what it means for the community. And here to discuss how ASU is innovating in ways that are unimaginable to some. There's some amazing work being done here in Arizona that helps accelerate opportunities for all of us. And I'm really proud to introduce Dean of the ASU Fulton Schools of Engineering, Dr. Kyle Squires, who's helping lead the way. And joining Dean Squires are the co-founders of local innovative materials startup Swiftcoat, Zach Holman and Peter Firth. And last but not least, joining us all the way from Taiwan in the middle of the night is Dr. Chiang Fu of TSMC, the world's largest semiconductor foundry. And again, we're very appreciative that you are breaking ground in Phoenix this year. Thank you for joining all of us today. And as a reminder to our audience, if you have questions during the panel discussion, please enter them in the QA. And if you don't hear your question being answered, please know that we will contact you with an answer. Dean Squires, take it away.
Well, thanks, Mia. Thanks very much to the panel for gathering today, for all of you for attending. This really is important. So we're pleased to be gathering this group together to talk about the New Economy Initiative, and in particular, the Science and Technology Centers that are a key piece. And I do want to make clear, as you're also hearing, you heard it from John and Mia, and it's apparent in the videos, the New Economy Initiative, it's not nice to have. We hope it works out. It would be great if it comes to pass. There's a sense of urgency. This is vital. It's vital to accelerating growth and sparking the kinds of transformations to complete those transformations if we're serious about driving the kinds of outcomes important to our communities so they thrive, so they create the kinds of opportunities where workforce and companies that are here, the companies that will come to Arizona, and TSMC is a great example of a recent, relocation to Arizona, and the companies that are created, will we create an environment where they can succeed and be sustained? And not just succeed, will they stay? So I'll come back to this point at the end of the panel, but the point I want to make is this. We need to make these investments today. If we don't do that, we will be left behind. Other regions within the Southwest, they've been doing this and they're moving. We know the basic strategy of what we're proposing works. It's working elsewhere. What's unique about the New Economy Initiative investment request to the state, it's unique to our region, our place, the kinds of strengths that we have here, and the foundations that we built. So what we want is that spark, that catalyzing investment, accelerate the launch of the initiatives that you're hearing about today and that we'll speak to in the panel. So the New Economy Initiative is indeed about building, guess what? The new economy. What does that mean? High wage jobs, structures and platforms that continuously train and upskill workforce. COVID has been wildly disruptive. It's reminded us lifelong learning, continuous training will be vital. The New Economy Initiatives and Science and Tech Centers will allow that. They'll bridge the gap between research, discovery, and practice. That spurs innovation, that spurs critical outputs, that leads to business creation. And again, you saw great examples in the video. So that all sounds great, right? It sounds nice. Everybody wants those things, but what's the structure? Okay, so one of the key elements of that structure are the Science and Technology Centers you're hearing about. And again, of course, we welcome questions and we can continue to follow up. The panelists that you're about to hear from, they represent key areas that are integral to the success of the STCs, or they in some ways embody successful outcomes of the Science and Tech Center. So Dr. Chung Fu, again, it's terrific to have him here from Taiwan, and we'll get to him in just a moment. Dr. Fu represents a key industry partner, TSMC, and again, we are thrilled to welcome them to the Valley. We want to further spur TSMC's success, along with many other industry partners in many other sectors. By bringing those companies into these centers, they will help pull ideas from the bench to practice, translate that research. They'll help conceptualize the next big research breakthroughs that will identify industries of the future, working alongside our faculty. And they'll be a partner in providing that training ground for our students and existing workforce. So you're also going to hear from one of our Fulton School's faculty, Professor Zach Holman. Again, Mia just introduced him. His research takes place in areas important to some of the sectors that we're targeting by these science and tech centers. And Zach is in fact leading the design of one of them. And then finally, the remaining panelists that we're happy to get to today is one of our Fulton School's graduate, Peter Firth. He's come to our programs. So he not only represents that highly skilled workforce that we simply need to produce more of if the Valley and if our region is to be successful, but he's an entrepreneur. He can speak to the small business startup creation and how STCs can quicken their success and what it takes to create more of these, okay, through the success story that is SwiftCoat, their company. So with that, I'd like to start with Dr. Fu. First question. So TSMC is moving to the Valley again, very excited. What attracted TSMC here, and how important is continuous innovation and access to talent to TSMC to your success moving forward?
Thank you, Dr. Squires. It's an honor to be here. I think TSMC has made it clear in the past that in order to be successful at building and operating an advanced technology fab in the US, we need both investment climate and talented workforce. The proximity to many of our customers and partners who are located in the US helps too. We are a technology-driven company, so innovation is our core strength. It really is our bread and butter. So in addition, our innovation empowers our customers to unleash theirs. So it's very important that we continue innovating. I think we can all agree that talent is the first step in innovation. Access to that talent pool is critical for us to stay competitive.
So Dr. Fu, so your sound isn't great. Let's move to the next question and see if we can help repair that a little bit. Can you also speak to how large is the investment that TSMC is going to make in the Valley, and how many jobs do you foresee as being created?
This information is publicly available. TSMC's total spending on this project, including capital expenditure, will be approximately $12 billion from 2021 to 2029. It will create over 1,600 high-tech professional jobs directly. Of course, we don't build and run a fab alone. We work with many of our suppliers and partners to support the fab operation. So there will be thousands of more indirect jobs creating the semiconductor ecosystem.
So I think that's very important. That is not only the actual building of the fab that TSMC is going to create, the jobs that will be directly created, but the supply chains impacted, the neighboring industries impacted. That's again one of the great outcomes that we see and that we'll be looking forward to partner on. Let me ask this: how do you as a company look at innovation cycles and processes with partners?
As I mentioned before, TSMC is a technology-driven company. So among the top-ranked companies in the US patent grants with over 2,800 patents in 2020 alone. So innovation is part of our DNA. So in addition to our internal research and development, we have fostered close collaborations with academic community, like university research centers, joint development program with individual PIs, and SRC, that's Semiconductor Research Corporation. So for us, innovation is a process of collaboration, not just during the past funding and the R&D phase.
So you spoke about innovation, you spoke about how vital that is to your industry sector. Research is important. That is, what role does research play in your business sector?
That's a good question. So most of our Most of you probably already knew the pandemic has greatly accelerated digital transformation. So within TSMC, we're also undergoing a transformation, which will require a much closer collaboration between industry and the university centers like STC. With a strong connection with the university and its vast resource of faculty and students, we're not only tackling today's most challenging problems in technology, but also building a healthy talent pipeline from college education to postgraduate research, which can eventually lead to either academic or industry careers for those students. So I'm really excited to say that ASU alumni talent pool is already an important source for us. Since we started the recruitment back in November, more than 10% of the new hires are from ASU. They'll come to Taiwan for 18 months of training, and they will bring the latest and greatest technology back to Arizona to help start our fab.
So that's awesome. That is huge impacts possible. We look forward to that partnership through faculty, facilities, research, and so forth. I'd like to move on to the next, bring in Professor Holman. So Zach, how do you think about partnerships with industry in research?
First of all, thanks for the invitation to participate on the panel here. As a faculty member in electrical engineering at ASU, I love partnering with industry, and as the director of faculty entrepreneurship within the Fulton Schools of Engineering at ASU, I love to promote partnerships with industry. And the reason is that in my experience, it provides clear value to both halves of the partnership. You see, universities need access to important problems in order to do meaningful research. There's a large sphere out there of interesting problems. There's a smaller subset of those that are important, the ones where if you solve them, it matters. It matters to our economy. It matters to people's lives. And industry has key insight often into what those important problems are. So industry brings those to the university and partnerships. Now, meanwhile, the university brings its innovation, and we heard a lot about ASU's innovation in particular in the video. And together, these arrive at new solutions, right? So the innovation might be specific to the area in which the company has expertise, but it might also be in completely complementary areas. And that's one unique thing about a university. It usually has a much broader scope than any company, any individual company. And so there could be social science and technology and electrical engineering and biology that are brought to bear on various problems. Maybe one last point on this is that in addition to partnerships between the university and large companies like TSMC, Arizona universities are really good at partnering with startup companies. And we've seen a big surge in growth in Arizona of startups in the last decade or so. And I know ASU is promoting its role in a lot of these because oftentimes the university is partnering with startups in research where the startup actually came out of the university. It was formed there through the entrepreneurship programs that we have, and we'll hear more about that.
So one of those outcomes, you're right, you talk about, entrepreneurial outputs that can be a startup. One of those is SwiftCode, and we're going to hear more from Peter about that in a moment. But speaking of startups, what is the origin story of SwiftCode?
Yeah, so SwiftCode is a company that came out of my lab at ASU from research that Peter Firth and I did. It was formed in 2016. It's a company, it's a material science company. And we'll hear more about its products shortly. Although it was formed in 2016, the origin starts back in 2013 with investment in the form of grant funding that through research led to the creation of new intellectual property. The protection of that intellectual property with ASU's Technology Transfer Office, and equally critical to the advancement of the technology up to the time in which SwiftCode was founded was the advancement of people. So Peter, who we'll hear from shortly, came back to the university from industry to get a master's degree, took a class with me, decided to join my research group as a master's student. We so enjoyed working together, and he was so passionate about the work that he was doing that he stayed on for a PhD and decided to take an entrepreneurship class that had a pitch at the end of it, and he won that pitch. And that was actually that pitch competition. That was the paycheck that resulted, the prize check was what led to the formation of SwiftCode. And since then, SwiftCode has has grown into a larger company. We'll hear more about it, and it's off and running on its own with its own funding, its own customers, its own employees. But really, we required this research, the intellectual property, and then the people. Those are the foundations for the company.
So it is really, it's been fascinating for me to watch the evolution of Swift Code and all the other startups that have come out of the Volt schools and in fact across ASU. It's timely to be talking about this because just this week, in the news, in the United States, the country's creating fewer startups now than at any time since the 1970s. And I'm talking pre-pandemic. What do you think limits the creation of more small businesses like Swift Code?
Yeah, I read that as well, and I was both amazed and not surprised. There's some key ingredients, and we need more of them, and we certainly need more of them in Arizona. And those key ingredients are people. That was mentioned by Dr. Fu. We already talked about Peter a little bit. He'll talk more about himself shortly. We need trained people who have a deep expertise in the problems that we're trying to solve, but also have an entrepreneurial mindset. Which is a key focus at Arizona universities. In addition to people, we need facilities. So Swift Code is an interesting case because it's a hard technology company, right? It's not software or a new app. And to go find the place that we needed with the tools that we needed in order to start the company, it didn't really exist. It was really hard to find a place in Arizona. We scoured the valley, and if we were to build one, it would have been tens of millions of dollars that we required. And finally, we found out that ASU actually had a facility, a unique facility, and that it's leasing to companies that partner with the university, which was a great model for Swift Code. So in addition to people, we need the right facilities, we need money, we need funding always for those startup companies, and we have I would say a small but growing VC and investment community and startups at least in the Phoenix area, and of course we need mentorship. So those are the things that we need more of to produce more Swift Codes.
So a startup, that's say one outcome, if you will, from a science and tech center. As I mentioned, right, you're leading the design of one of the STCs. What's the vision for the STC that you have in mind, and what do you think it will do to help the Valley?
Great. So the Science and Technology Center that I'm focusing on is about energy, materials, and devices. Now, what does that mean? That means developing new solar technology that's going to secure our energy future. That means developing and scaling the batteries that we need for energy storage for electric vehicles. And that means power electronics, the smart sensors and devices behind, let's say, a smart utility grid. So those are the focuses technologically, but really what the STC is about is catalyzing through research and technology translation the growth of the new economy that we've been talking about in the state of Arizona through partnership with both large companies and small companies. And we're already starting to pilot this at ASU. We have great success in our initial pilot. We'll hear from Peter momentarily as one of those early successes. And what we need is money to do this on a larger scale.
Awesome. So let's transition to Peter. So Peter, you've been an undergraduate at ASU in the chemical engineering program, graduate student in electrical engineering, in between working in the semiconductor industry at both small companies like Trion Technology and larger corporations like onsemi. So now you're running a company based on your graduate research. So can you tell us about what has changed over that time frame that I just sort of summarized, and why you felt now was the right time to start your venture?
Yeah, so I've been in the ASU ecosystem for almost 15 years. I've gotten to experience firsthand the growth and the change that the university itself has experienced. And I think that one of the most impactful of these changes has been the university's embrace of entrepreneurship. All the way back in 2006, when I was an undergrad, the culture, the curriculum, the opportunities that were available to students were very much geared towards placing graduates in jobs at large companies. The dream that I had, the dreams that my friends had, were landing a role at a place like Schlumberger or Chevron or Intel. None of us really even considered working at a startup. And we certainly didn't consider forming our own because we didn't really know that was an opportunity that was available to us. At that time, there hadn't really been a standout success that we could model after. Faculty that had that type of experience were really few and far between. And looking back, I didn't really have the skills necessary to be successful in a startup environment. At some point between when I finished undergrad and came back for graduate school, people like Dr. Squires realized that the university was producing a lot of interesting and valuable technology that was collecting dust on a shelf. And they were producing a lot of exceptional and capable graduates that were being stuffed away in cubicles. And so they had started to enact a vision where entrepreneurship wasn't just something that was reserved for the more eccentric students in the MBA program, but a very prominent component of the engineering curriculum and culture. The embodiment of that vision was when I was approached about the idea of turning my research into a company, and I said, well, I'm an engineer, I don't know anything about business. The response was, well, we'll teach you. When I said, I'm a terrible public speaker, they said, we'll help you make you a great one. I don't know any investors, we'll introduce you. I don't have any customers, we'll help you find them. And the university absolutely did all of those things. Within a year, my company became one of the most awarded student startups in the country, taking in over $200,000 in pitch competition winnings and placing 4th out of 750 competitors at the largest student startup competition in the country. The next year, we raised our first round of venture capital. The next year, we received $2.5 million in federal research grants. And today, we employ a full-time staff of 6 engineers and have joint development agreements and projects with some of the largest manufacturing companies in the country.
Incredible. What's your vision for SwiftCoat? What's next?
Yeah, SwiftCoat operates in the field of nanotechnology, where over the last 50 years, there have been close to 1 million published papers, 200,000 granted patents, and billions of dollars in research. And all of that money and all of that effort has produced less than 500 actual products. Our company is based on a manufacturing technology that aims to bridge the gap between what can be done in a lab and what can be done at a commercial scale. So our vision isn't 500, but tens of thousands of new products in the healthcare and energy and building materials sectors that utilize nanomaterials, all of which are enabled by our technology. Our first product is a self-cleaning coating for glass, which could be used for windows in your home, keeping them looking pristine, or in solar modules, reducing the buildup of dirt, keeping them operating at high efficiencies year-round.
So what would be, say, the one thing or the 1 or 2 things? How do we accelerate the creation of the next Swift coats? I say plural. That is, how do we make this go faster? What can we do? What do you need?
Yeah, in my 15 years in the ASU ecosystem, I've met a lot of people like me. I've seen a lot of cool technologies like SwiftCoat. I think the only thing that's keeping the same level of success that we've had from being replicated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times is expanded and streamlined access to that same infrastructure SwiftCoat has gotten access to. It's connecting more research and more researchers to corporate partners and investors earlier on in the development process. It's making it easier for a new company to lease an old lab being used as a storage room. And it's generating IP, more relevance to industry, and making it easier to license that IP.
So, well, that's incredible. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Zach. And thanks, Shang. Really interesting. And to everybody listening, basically, you've just had described to you what comes out of an STC, why, where it can focus on, what do we need more of? The power of partnership from TSMC, from Zach, research impacts, industry partnership, outcomes that can be highly entrepreneurial, and from Peter, just the value of creating a small business and how we accelerate that innovation for more startups that are so vital to the ecosystem. So what I wanted to say sort of in passing as I move this back to Mia is we've gotten to this point by working really hard, maximizing all that we do, being very creative, very innovative in terms of how we engage in the university, engage in the community, and it's been terrific. So what have we done? We've built the prototype. We've proven it. Now we have to scale. We have to scale up. And that gets back to, guess what? The catalyzing investment that is a state request to be able to do that. And believe me, industry partners around the world are watching. Can we bring more to Arizona? Can we start more small businesses? Can we improve our communities along the way? Question is very basic. Are we going to make the right investments? We should. I've just described for you, courtesy of the panel, what is the blueprint. So with that, Mia, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Just really curious, is there a plan B if this doesn't work? Do we have a plan B?
So we have to get plan A to work, because I don't think plan B is very appealing. That is, to not do this, we do one thing. Chris Camacho alluded to in the video, and he'll probably make the same remark at the end. We'll actually lose ground. And it's beginning to happen because, again, our regional peers, the Colorados, Utahs, Texas, and so forth, they're making this investments. The data is showing that economic growth within Arizona is lagging. That's what's happening. So by not doing anything, plan B means falling further behind. And that means, guess what? Low wage jobs, ultimately lower quality of life. That's not a future any of us want.
So I'm going to give you a softball. I actually know the answer to this, but not everybody does. How typical is something like Swiftcoat, a university baked and birthed tech company? How special is this?
So within the Fulton schools, we produce about 8 to 10 startups per year, kind of of that number. They're each really interesting because they're so unique, right? They're targeting different, maybe, industry sectors. They've got different sets of ideas, but they're very powerful in terms of the ideas that they present within their company and trying to make their mark within the community. We know that model works, and now we want to go to a much larger scale because we've got the brains, we've built the structure to do that, and now it's that investment to push it to the next level.
And this isn't something that you see at every university. It's a pretty remarkable thing what you and your team have been doing, and the Zachs of the world, Peters of the world. It's incredibly exciting, actually. So thank you for that work, and thank you for being here with us today. That was a really fascinating panel discussion to me about the power and science that you are seeing. You're seeing the power of science and technology in our economy, the impact that it's making. That next panel, it's going to feature businesses that have invested their resources into actual applied technology being conducted right here in Arizona. And PEI has built 2 applied research centers. One center is focused on blockchain, and the other center develops wearable technology solutions. The WearTech Center is located in the heart of Phoenix at Park Central, Business Park on Central Avenue. If you haven't been there, you should take a spin through. The WearTech Center takes innovative ideas that have been developed through university fundamental research, combines those ideas with businesses that want to communicate those, that want to commercialize those ideas, and adds in public financial resources provided by the legislature to accelerate the development process, and ends up with products that are actually ready to go to market rather than in the drawer like so many great ideas do. Today, we're going to see a video about the WearTech Center project and then spend a few minutes talking to the innovators who are developing these projects. The video is a fascinating look at a fall prediction device that is being developed by Third Technology Capital Investors, Dr. Thurman Lockhart from ASU, and the Moore Foundation. So let's watch the video.
My name is Lockhart, but my dad's name is Lockhart as well. My dad was a very interesting guy. He was a World War II veteran and fought in Korea as well as Vietnam. And he was what we call frequent faller. He was very frail. So the design of this system is called the Lockhart monitor. That's for him, actually.
So historically, in order to assess the balance and stability of patients and subjects, we have to bring them into a laboratory that has a tremendous amount of equipment that's quite expensive and time-consuming to run those studies. But there are accelerometers and gyroscopes within every smartphone. We believe that by clipping a cell phone with some of those same types of sensors built in, we can get a lot of the same data with very high fidelity and really eliminate the need for the lab in certain cases.
So fall detection monitor, we worked on it 20 years ago. What we are trying to do is fall prediction. Predict fallers before they fall. Because remember that for the older adults, if you fall just that one time, your chances of falling increases. But not only that, you have a chances of death significantly. So what you want to do is you want to avoid that first fall, whatever you do. So this system will actually predict an individual before they fall of their instability in terms of their walking style, as well as how they stabilize themselves.
So step one is validating the sensors that are within the phone. Step two is developing our own sensor that communicates with the phone and becomes basically a range extender of those sensors that are in the phone. WearTech has really allowed this program to develop and be successful. Without the WearTech support, we would have technology developed at the university, we would have a company trying to commercialize that, but we wouldn't be able to do the clinical validation that we're doing here today. When we move this technology actually into the patient population and start to prevent falls from occurring, we are preventing pain and suffering, we are decreasing the cost of care in the country, and we are saving lives at the end of the day.
So great. As a daughter of scientists, I really love being inside a lab, and I hope you enjoyed that sort of behind the scenes look at work that is helping make our community stronger and healthier. We are so excited to talk with the business leaders that have invested in applied research in both the WearTech and Arizona Blockchain Centers. And we are so fortunate today to be joined by the chairman of the Arizona House Commerce Committee, Representative Jeff Winiger. He is going to be our moderator for this panel. And again, if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A. If you don't hear your question being answered, please know that we'll contact you with the answer. And Representative Winiger, it is all yours.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you very much. Today, it's great to be here. Today we have Dr. Joe Hitt from GoX Labs, Scott Carlson from Keldelsky Security, and Dr. Mark Jakowski from the Core Institute and Moore Foundation. So let's start with Joe. I do remember you came down to the legislature. It's been very exciting a couple years ago and talked to all of us about applied research. It was a fascinating discussion. I think people have really gotten interested in this. Can you give us a little background on yourself and GoX Labs, if I'm pronouncing that right?
Of course. Well, I had the honor and privilege of serving in the U.S. Army, where I got to jump out of airplanes in pitch black darkness for a living. Then I was a professor of engineering at West Point, working with cadets, and then a PM at DARPA, where I built humanoid robots and exoskeletons. Once I got out of the military, I started several companies. One was number 27 on Inc. 5000 in 2019, where we grew that business in 3 years from 2 of us to 200 employees. I started GoX Labs, a software company based today at the WearTech Center in Phoenix. What we do is we predict and prevent future workforce injury. So I've taken a lot of the things that I've done in the military, a lot of the data we've collected, a lot of the science, and we've converted that into a commercial company now. Today, we predict, prevent future workforce injury, illness. We have a COVID detector, and diseases like diabetes using third-party wearables. So we take things like smartwatches and we put an app on there, and that app does that prediction. Today, GoX Labs is in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and so on.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. You made me feel pretty inadequate with your resume there, but that's okay. Congrats. That's amazing. So you told us a little bit about the WearTech project somewhat. So maybe expand on that a little bit. And then once you've validated your testing and protocols, what's next?
Yeah, so GoX Labs is involved in many projects, and one of them is the WearTech project. So in partnership with Arizona State University, WearTech, the Wearable Robotics Trade Association, and the Fraunhofer Institute, which is the Europe's second largest research organization, we have developed test standards for exoskeletons, right? So every new product at the end of the day needs a test standard that helps to make sure the product is effective and safe for consumers. So we've done that. We have developed the tools. We've tested it with test subjects, and we've tested it with top commercially available exoskeletons. And we did that right inside the WearTech Center. Today it's validated, and we're ready for the next steps. We want this to be a critical part of the exoskeleton explosion that's happening all across the globe.
So with that, do you think it's a goal and realistic with some of these things that you're doing there, and hopefully we're expanding upon this at the legislature to attract those exoskeleton developers to the Valley and to the state?
Yeah, and really what you're asking is, can you get companies like GoX Labs to come here?
Right.
And the answer is yes. We have great applied research. You just heard some. So Dean Squire talked about it. You had Zach, these Peter. I mean, these are some really impressive young people, and you just heard about their research. We have the Wearable Robotics Trade Association located here in Arizona, so that's great. We do have some fantastic companies, but also we haven't talked about it yet. I haven't heard it yet, but fantastic weather. I work outside. You can't beat this weather. You can't beat our restaurants and the hiking, the energy here, the lower cost of living compared to the coasts, emphasis on innovation, and slowly I'm starting to see access to capital. So I do believe we are at a tipping point to create a regional hub for exoskeletons here in Arizona, and to attract companies like GoX to come and be part of the culture, leverage the great resources we have here, and be part of this new economy.
Well, I think it's so important, the work that you're doing and your company's doing, and bringing that entire vertical and making it a reality here. And really, that's one thing we've tried at the legislature to do is not just be dependent on real estate like we were years ago. And every vertical that we can create that is realistic, I think, is good. And so that kind of brings us to a passion of mine over the last few years, which is blockchain. I've been intrigued by it, even the cryptocurrency side and the blockchain side, and ran multiple bills on it, and hopefully helped advance it somewhat here. We have Scott Carlson, who works with Kudelski Security. Scott also came down to the legislature a couple of years ago, and we've discussed a lot of these things. So tell us a little bit about your company, and people might not know that you're headquartered right here in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So Kudelski Security is part of a larger entity called the Kudelski Group. We're a 60-year-old Swiss company located just outside of Geneva. And in 2016, we were looking for a US headquarters to launch our cybersecurity division. And we ended up picking Phoenix right here, primarily due to its location, access to resources, the amount of business friendliness and input that Arizona has put on innovators like the Kudelski Group. We're primarily known for digital television, but when we look to focus on cybersecurity, there's not much better place to be than in Arizona with access to the rest of the US.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why did you invest, I guess, in the Arizona Blockchain Applied Research Center specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our corporate executives have a long history of working with partnerships like this. An organization called EPFL in Switzerland. We're a big partner of theirs. Through Georgia Tech, our current CEO for Kudelski Security built an equivalent thing out there. And when we got this opportunity, we felt, hey, this is an opportunity for us to make a real difference using our experience doing it before, and promoting something we're really good at, which is sort of the underlying foundation of what makes blockchain technology work.
Absolutely. So how do you think this research will help the company Kudelski?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you take a look at our history of what makes the Kudelski Group sort of famous and good, we protect physical access, digital content, and help with cybersecurity. The foundation of all that is math and science, and and doing those kind of encryption and cryptography algorithms. When you look at what blockchain technology is, it's a new application of this kind of science to, different types of business models, different types of tech that could actually revolutionize the world in the way we do business. Because we have such a long history of mathematics and expertise in this area, we believe we can become a leader in helping solve these problems, testing people who are solving these problems, participating in the ecosystem, when there's these sort of global distributed challenges that a blockchain can potentially solve.
Yeah, and I'm very passionate about it, and it's tough to explain it to people when they say, what is it, and this and that.
Yeah.
I do truly think it could revolutionize things in ways like the internet did, but I think it's just not as sometimes sexy to people as the internet. You just get on and do it. It's happening in the background, but the efficiencies and the validation that it provides, I just think is so important and can just save people so much money and time. What's your take on the future of blockchain in general and where we're going?
So for those of you who do not know what blockchain technology is, to make it really simple, it's a database that you can't change without detecting that it has been changed. So it's a really great way to prove that what is in there hasn't changed or could be the truth. So now if you think, what if I have a big long list of records that nobody can change, that I know is the truth to begin with? What kind of business models can I build on top of that kind of information? I can do identity-based things really fast. Maybe I can buy a house in 5 minutes. I can prove signatures because I can look them up in seconds. I can do business transactions one hop at a time instead of waiting for net 30, net 60, net 90. So assuming this technology is on solid math foundations, which we've proven it is, these algorithms are 20, 30, 40 years old. We now need these sort of business process and technologies to on top of it that utilize this good tech. And so assuming we have the right investment in people changing the business models on top of blockchain technology, like it could be the way just things are run. We know who you are, we know where your money is, we know all of it like that fast. And we know it's true. We know truth is challenging sometimes in the world today. Why not have something that helps us prove that? I think it's pretty exciting.
You're right. And I just got a text from someone saying, you're doing a really good job explaining blockchain.
Thank you.
Either have someone or try to point them to someone who can explain it. And that was really good. Do we need additional resources for blockchain applied research?
The answer is absolutely, right? So you, I think, started this in 2016 or 2017. Some of the laws in place here in Arizona allow us to play with this safely and legally, right? We can use it as money for a little bit. We know a digital signature is okay. We know businesses can operate and experiment without the threat of it being thrown away because it might potentially be illegal. Like we put those guardrails in place in Arizona. That's awesome. So now we need the investment in the tools and techniques and businesses and potential use cases where we can say, hey, look, we made it legal and we made it useful. Why don't you come do it here in Arizona?
Right. No, absolutely. And I definitely think it's going to be a vertical in the future. And I thought the United States as a whole needs to get on board. I mean, somewhat with digital currencies and these kinds of things. But I always use the example that if in Silicon Valley back in the 90s, somebody was like, okay, hang on, us regulators need to get our hands around this internet, we would be at such a huge disadvantage to other countries and growth. And I feel that same way about blockchain, a lot of these different things and small cell capabilities. And we have to get, in a safe way, some of these regulations out of the way instead of stifling growth.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Right guardrails. It's great.
Absolutely. So in the video, we saw the fall prediction monitor. Today we have Mark Jakowski, who leads the private sector research team for the Core Institute. Mark, tell us a little bit about Core and why you decided to invest in a WearTech project.
Well, thank you for having me. We heard a lot about startups today, and in a way, the Core Institute is an Arizona startup success story in and of its own. We were founded in 2006 by three orthopedic surgeons that had a vision to really change the way healthcare was delivered in the orthopedic space. And now we are the largest provider of musculoskeletal care in the state of Arizona, and we employ over 1,500 people throughout the state. So it's really been an exciting startup ride. We're not only innovators when it comes to technology and patient care, but also as it relates to bending the cost curve to keep healthcare affordable. So it's one thing to study or to optimize, how you treat a fall-related injury, such as a hip fracture. But and we want to obtain the best patient outcomes with the greatest cost efficiency. But it's really a paradigm shift for an orthopedic surgeon and an orthopedic group to work to prevent those fall injuries altogether. And we truly believe that the technology that Dr. Lockhart has developed has the ability to prevent falls and related injuries. The challenge is the validation and the implementation in a busy healthcare system that traditionally does not financially reward injury prevention. It unfortunately rewards injury treatment over injury prevention. So it's that opportunity to really change that paradigm that motivated the Core Institute's leadership to invest in this technology and help bring it to market.
Excellent. So how did the WearTech Center help bring the idea to life that you worked on?
So the technology was initially developed by Dr. Lockhart with decades of research that was funded through National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, those types of organizations. And it had been tested and validated with small groups of volunteers in the lab environment, but there wasn't a source of funds that was really available to translate the innovation from the lab to the clinic. And without WearTech, this technology may have fallen into that proverbial valley of death and never made it into the clinic where it can truly improve people's lives and well-being. So the WearTech funds helped us to bridge that gap and fund the critical validation studies in real patient populations and the initial clinical implementation with real-world clinical care teams.
Right. So then again, once the product is validated, what happens next after that?
Yeah, so we plan to work with our clinicians at the Core Institute as well as many other medical practices, and we want to implement this technology here in Arizona and across the nation with our partners. We believe this technology, once it's broadly implemented, will really have a measurable impact through reducing the incidence of falls, particularly in elderly populations. And this will improve quality of life and reduce healthcare costs to organizations like Medicare, state Medicaid, and private insurance companies. So it really provides a return on investment to the taxpayers and the private sector that help to fund these things. There are very few innovations in healthcare that can truly bend the cost of the healthcare curve. And we're confident that preventing falls rather than treating resulting fall injuries is really one of the few innovations that can bend that cost curve.
Do you think that Core would work on future WearTech projects if there were additional funds put into the program?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think these funds, as I said, really can help promising new technologies overcome that valley of death where they just sit on the shelf and don't move from innovation to implementation. And we would welcome additional opportunities to help move those innovations from the lab to the actual clinical care setting.
Excellent. And I think what you're talking about specifically kind of goes to everyone who is on the call. And what I try to preach down here is that you're talking about real world savings for government and stuff, because it won't be such a tax on the healthcare system and everything here. And I always love the more, the feeling ones. But then in addition to that, as you and these other companies expand, you're bringing on more jobs, which means more people being paid, which means they're going out shopping, they're paying income tax, and it helps us. That's why we've done so well for the last few years, is because you have expanded the economy, because somewhat we tried to get the regulatory environment out of your way. and help to build companies up and keep them here. And we're proud that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to keep people healthy and keep their life in motion. That's really our mantra here.
I mean, I do, and the others can answer this because we might have an extra minute or two, and if we don't, Mia or somebody can interrupt me. But one thing I do caution people about, and I did this tons with blockchain, and I think it would apply to you as well, is that there's always incumbent players who like the chessboard to remain as it is because they might have a competitive advantage or their business model works for this kind of thing. I mean, Ubers and taxi cabs is a real elementary kind of example of that. You're saying that, Mark, that yeah, people might be resistant to somebody preventing injuries for orthopedic surgeons and not having it in the first place. In blockchain, you know, if there's a title company that facilitates titles and you go in and sign all your papers and everything, they might not be happy that blockchain is here and can do it in a lot faster time without you being physically present. So do you run into those kinds of things and those kinds of a little bit of pushback that you're going against incumbent players that have been there for years with their business model?
Yeah, well, you know, certainly no orthopedic surgeons or healthcare providers want to see a patient injured and become their patient, right? But the financial models that have historically been in place for 50 plus years in this country and the way insurance works is you are only financially rewarded if you are treating someone that has been injured. And so I think we need a paradigm change, and some of that you know, goes hand in hand with legislative change and push to really incentivize programs to prevent people from getting injured, to keep people healthy longer, which actually reduces cost in the long run. And so there are certainly some entrenched ideas and providers, and the system is structured such that we really need to change the way healthcare providers are incentivized to keep people healthy rather than treating their injuries and diseases.
Excellent. Well, I thank all three of you for one, having your businesses here, and two, for joining this discussion, this great discussion about applied research. The work happening right here in Arizona is incredible, and with the limited resources that the legislature has invested so far, I think is paying off great dividends, and I look forward to hopefully keep this going and keep Arizona investing in these great companies.
Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you.
Jeff, thanks so much for that. It was fascinating. I'm like you. I love to see things actually happen and work and make the world better. And I think those were really great examples. And so much of that is happening here. I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have a favorite? Something you just are like, that is so cool?
No, they're all cool. I love getting, and it's wild because at home, my wife and I can't stop talking about like a new technology when I find out, and I just get so engrossed in it. And so these things fascinate me. I mean, really meeting entrepreneurs like this is like, you know, meeting a famous band when I was a kid, because it's just, that's what I aspire to be. I'm a restaurateur on the outside. I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm in awe of these guys.
Yeah, Vicki Mayo was in our earlier video when a local entrepreneur, and her Touchpoint Solutions is one that I've used for our employees and for students and others. It just works, and it's simple and wearable and science, you know, and it came right here out of Arizona. So there are a lot of great examples. So I really appreciate you sharing that and joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I am very pleased to introduce Jim Rounds. He is so interesting, and there is just a lot to be talked about. You've heard so much about applied research. Jim is the CEO of Rounds Consulting and a noted Arizona economist. Jim, I know you have a slide deck, so you are going to be even jazzier, and then I'll come back with some questions. Turning it over to you.
Let me share the screen, and thanks for the opportunity. Over the last couple of years, this is something where I've become very fond of looking at the New Economy Initiative, the PEI connections, really based on doing math, doing research into what makes good public policy, doing research into what drives economic growth. And sometimes the more gray hair you get or the thinner it gets, the more knowledge you have from just being around, and you really get a good feel after a couple or 3 decades on what really drives the state. And I'm from here. I went to ASU for undergrad and grad, and I'm hoping that my family will continue to be around here for a while, including my son. So I have a vested interest because of that history, but I have an interest just because of the economic facts that you'll see. And you don't really need a long presentation. You don't need 100 slides to show why we need the New Economy Initiative, but you just need a couple of key ones. So first, we talk about the fact that we grow rapidly. We're top 5 in most economic categories of growth. Through this entire COVID downturn, we've been number 3 in the nation in terms of maintaining jobs. And I like the fact that we keep growing, but we have to grow well. And over a longer period of time, when I say grow well, it means add incomes. We need to start adding jobs with much higher incomes at a rate that we haven't really considered in the past. And it's a catch-22 because when you create some of these high wage jobs, you create spin-off jobs that create lower income jobs. So it's a heavy lift going forward, but we did a little bit of context on this. But first, here's what woke me up when I had to put this together as a slide a few years back. It was tracking the greater Phoenix area's per capita personal income. And we used to be above the US. That's when the red line was above the green line. And then we started to slip. There was a little bit of a bump in 04 to 06, and that was because of the artificial spike in economic activity because of what happened before the Great Recession. But in general, it's been falling. And even if you make proper adjustments for how states are different or metro areas are different, unfortunately, we're lagging most of our economic development competitors in this quality measure. And this isn't a criticism of what's been done in the past. The good policy from the last decade, especially after the Great Recession, is what made us more resilient. It helped us have a better budget situation like right now, but it also gives us an opportunity to start putting money in places where we can get even more. And when you think about how a successful business operates, you look at return on investment. If I make an investment in capital in my company or training or anything else, I don't just write a check and say I lost that amount of money. I say I did this because I'm going to make at least that and a penny back. Sometimes you can make much more than that. But we have to take a look at this trend that you're seeing because it's comparing ourselves to ourselves. We're holding all else constant. And this is something that'll be researched further over the spring and the summer. But this is what you hear when you hear about the need for the New Economy Initiative. We did some preliminary numbers. We'll do more refined ones later on what does it take just to catch PCPI, per capita personal income, up to just the US average. And we certainly don't want to be a state that just pushes the average. We want to be a state that exceeds it. And on the most simple analysis that we can think of, which means the numbers are lower than probably what is going to be in reality as the need, we have to add about 120,000 high-tech jobs over the next decade with starting wages of $100,000 a year just to catch up with the US average. That's a heavy lift for us. If you factor in additional growth that is going to naturally be coming in, things like that, that 120 might go to 150 or 160. We have to start this now. And this isn't just the only piece that has to be put into place. We need a true plan going forward. I've been using this slide. I had last count was 225, I think, presentations, because I love the simplicity of that stereo equalizer. Lots of things drive economic growth. And say the dial on the left on the screen, that might be tax policy. So tax rates up or down. The next one might be infrastructure investment, intellectual infrastructure, then you have physical infrastructure, all the different things that make the economy tick. And you don't just turn up the volume or you don't just slide one dial up or down to make it sound good. You find the right balance. You set it up in a consistent way that sounds good to you. That's how the economy works. And for some context, if we hear about a program where it's going to cost $100 million to fund, then we need to show tax revenue equal to greater than $100 million. And that means a positive return on investment. This applies to the universities, the New Economy Initiative, and basically every economic development project that's out there. For a little bit of context, this was the analysis that we started last year before COVID hit, when we were talking about the New Economy Initiative. And the analysis that we did for ASU on their proposal had a break even roughly in the middle of year 1 and year 20. When you do an economic development project, when you give incentives, you usually think about 5 years out. Cities might think 10 years out if infrastructure is involved. If it's a bigger item like that intellectual infrastructure, you can go out 20. And in this case, we got a break-even point in the same time that most economic development projects find that break-even point. And after that, the state's making even more money, which means we can lessen the burden on taxpayers while we still make additional investments. So all of the analyses that we did for all the universities last year, and it's looking the same now, is a high probability of an ROI that's going to be one of the bigger items that are going to be debated this year and probably in future years as well. So the math works on the New Economy Initiative. We really need to figure out a way of jumping to the next level. We have to not just catch up with the US average on the quality of the job growth, we have to catch up with some of our competitors. Why is it that Denver is at a certain rate? Why is it that Salt Lake is doing well in certain categories? We'll have to do a little bit more research on these things, but my main point is we have to do a lot. This is a great time. The budget is set, the business cycle is set. This is a great time for us to be investing much more in the New Economy Initiative than what's been proposed thus far. And again, every single analysis that we've done on this, it's consistently shown a positive ROI. And that concludes my presentation.
Really, such a great case for why it's important to the economy to do this. I would love to hear a little bit more about what happens if we don't make the investment.
If we don't make the investment, then we'll continue to grow in terms of volume, not at the same level of quality. We won't have the funds to further make our tax policy, our tax laws more competitive. We won't have the funds to deal with poverty issues that are going to impact higher education longer term. There's a number of things that we have to work on. So that list really isn't an exhaustive list. That's just 10 things that came to mind. There's dozens and dozens. So we have to be aggressive. We were aggressive after the Great Recession. We had a complete overhaul of how we do things in the economy, the economic development programs, everything else. We need to do that again. This is a time to do it. There is no better year than this year to get this ball rolling and at a significant level.
And what significant look like to you? What do we need to do?
Well, we first have to make sure that the requests are funded, even if we have to have a little bit of a 2-year phase-in or whatever we do. But these are programs that are going to bring in more dollars over the longer term than what they're going to be costing in the shorter term. When you have a budget surplus, you can make those investments. And this legitimately could be the best expansion the state's ever had if we implement some good public policy this year, next year, and the following. And it has to include some New Economy Initiative. Again, the math doesn't lie. The math doesn't play politics. This is a good proposal.
All right, so you're seeing the demographics change swiftly within the state and a lot of in-migration into the state. So how does this help? You know, we talk like we're growing, it's all good, but you're saying too, like you need to invest with that growth. And what case, you know, if we're just growing all by ourselves, why do I need to spend money to help us grow more?
And really, that's the foundation for growing well. You have to be growing already. You have to have these opportunities. You have to have all of these great decisions that were made over the last decade after the Great Recession to set us up to where we are now. So you need that growth. We're not saying that we need to do it differently. We're basically saying, let's take it to another tier. Let's take it to the next level. And maybe we can be the #1 state in the country when you aggregate all of these statistics that economists and policy advisors look at.
great place to live, great place to do business, and a great place to start a business. But you need to invest. So we've got the workforce to make that happen. There's a lot of research, and you're an economist, like you said, the numbers aren't political, they're just math. You've got numbers like if we are making these kinds of investments, they're sort of necessary investments, that we will be 10, 12, 15% better than we would be otherwise. So there's these big jumps in that percentage. Do you see an acceleration as well at that point?
Yeah, this is, we have an opportunity to accelerate upwards or fall flat and maybe even decline. And so I don't picture things just continuing at the normal pace because we have a lot of economic development competitors that are being more aggressive. So we need, it's like one of those movie scenes where they say, step forward if you want to do something. And the one person that forgets a step forward is behind everybody else, or the opposite happens. Everybody steps back and it makes it look like somebody's stepping forward.
Not just to prevent defense.
Yeah, we have to be thinking about how can we legitimately take a step forward and not just hopefully benefit from some of our competitors stumbling. And right now, and I used to criticize the legislature and leadership all the time in speeches for years and years. I've never been more proud of what our leaders have been doing in terms of building the economy. We truly have the most exceptional economic focused leaders in the country. And I've read a lot of the reports in other states on how they do things. And there's a big drop off. We do this well, we analyze it well, let's implement it well.
Oh, so great. And I really appreciate your insights on this, Jim, and the work that you're doing, and appreciate you being here today with us.
Thanks.
So far, our speakers have helped connect the dots on how science and technology centers provide the fuel for this next phase of Arizona's economy. Our industry investors have shared with us how the applied research centers really are accelerating products to market that help make the world better and safer and more prosperous. Jim has just explained how investing in higher education through the New Economy Initiative really will provide a strong return on investment for the state of Arizona. Our final guest is familiar to all of you, I'm sure. It's Chris Camacho, our friendly neighborhood GPEC chief. He'll close out our Innovation Summit. He is also, in addition to being a president and CEO of Greater Phoenix Economic Council, one of the biggest cheerleaders for the state and for our region. Welcome, Chris. I am so glad you're here with us today. Since Chris has taken the helm of GPEC, his strategic data-driven approach is giving all of us confidence during challenging times. So I leave it to you to close us out on the importance of investing in the New Economy Initiative and our innovation ecosystem, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Mia. Can you hear me okay? All right. Thank you very much for moderating today and facilitating this really important conversation. I love what Jim said about the math. It's really about the math. It's about growing the pie, which is our economy and our state. And there's no question that the historical arms race of sorts from the 70s, we're now in this talent race and innovation race in places like Atlanta with Georgia Tech and Dallas and Austin. And these other markets are doubling down in this innovation, applied research, engineering capacity. And so, I just don't want us as leaders in this state to take for granted that the last 10 years of economic growth, which has led to much more economic diversification. As somebody who studies markets for a living, I've seen the slide like St. Louis in the early 1900s, which was the gateway to the West. You see Detroit in the automotive sector and its inability to reinvent itself after the Rust Belt collapse tied to automotive. And so while we have this picture in time of massive stickiness in terms of people wanting to move here and growth and, obviously advancing universities, we can't take that for granted. And so again, yes, it's about the math. Yes, it's about growing the pie in a diversified way so that we're bringing more knowledge workers in the state, but also grooming our own IP. All of these factions play into our ability to compete on the global scale. And I was excited to hear from TSMC's technology leader. That unequivocally is going to be a very paramount investment, much like when Intel came here in 1979. These play on each other and really crystallize not only Metro Phoenix, but the state as a major player in the global semiconductor sector. So One thing I just want to reinforce to close this out, every market is evaluating its fragility. And from a fragility perspective, it's whether or not you're able to sustain the needs of the changing digital economy and putting a region in a position to access the quality and the quality labor, the modern infrastructure, and creating the pipelines of tomorrow. So the new economy initiative, Mia, in my mind, it's unequivocally something we must do. We must make this investment because, again, it's not a theoretical argument, as Jim alluded to. It's about the math. It's about these kind of investments which nurture getting innovators into the labs, getting large companies, their engineering talent aligned with our university capacity, and put us on this national class stage that not only will fortify our ability to recruit the best and brightest globally, but arguably will be able to ensure that our local companies that were born and bred here can actually get to scale. And that's something also I would have argued in talking with Jeff Winiger and others over the years, is that we don't want to be a place that just starts companies and then they go get their capital elsewhere and then leave the market. We want a place that grooms ideas, takes these ideas to scale, creates the next generation of wealth, and all of that's here. And we export those ideas and technologies to the world. And I think we should accept nothing less than that. And so I think we're at that unique pivotal point where we should take this on, and it's incumbent upon certainly the private sector leaders in this community, but also the legislature, which again, I would echo Jim's sentiments. I mean, I've seen a very intentional approach under Governor Ducey and certainly the Commerce Authority leadership. I look at where we've been from the '08 recession to where we are today, and the fact that we're seeing reduced percentages in our unemployment rate. You're seeing a likely recovery that will hit in Q3 this year in terms of full jobs recovery. And then and beyond, we're seeing, the pie growing. But again, I want to see us build these national class status university systems with our public universities that enable us to compete for this ever-changing type of company, whether it's fintech, blockchain, any of these multidisciplinary engineering roles. All of these are absolutely critical for us to continue to expand the base. In addition, the New Economy Initiative, I mean, it has all the bells and whistles of engineering and certainly applied research, but embedded within that, it's also focused on the next generation of teachers and teaching capacity for this ever-changing education system. And as someone who works with all of our mayors here in the region, we know how important it is that we increase our educational attainment rate, our graduation rate. And as we see a pivot with many more minority students entering our K through 12 system, we need the teachers of tomorrow that want to lead in this profession. And so, again, what I would ask of the legislators, on the call today, along with the private sector, let's work together. We have a unique opportunity with this New Economy Initiative, which with ASU, the $46 million investment, the resources also for U of A and NAU that are needed. And I would ask too, the $3 to $5 million that's being asked for the applied research effort. You heard from the teams, the innovators and university partners that align with industry. That's our way through this innovation cycle. And the more we can put that kind of capital and matching capital to work with the Blockchain and Wearable Technology Institute enables us to advance this new intellectual property built by Arizonans. As much as I love Ding in California, which we do all the time, and bringing their IP here and their job centers here, I'm really proud that we've built really strong ingenuity here in our state. And let's continue to invest in that, and let's export this talent and ideas, outside the state and outside the country. So just to finalize, because I know we're about to close here today, is I do believe that I'm on the front lines with Sandra Watson and our city economic developers every day. And we're talking to companies every single day. And these kind of investments, they're watching what our state's doing relative to Texas and Utah and Colorado, and they're measuring what kind of future we're building. And so again, applied research, engineering, STEM capacity, that's what this conversation is all about. And I'd appreciate those legislators on the line to support this initiative, because we think emphatically not doing this is extraordinarily harmful. Doing this allows us to zoom ahead of a lot of these other markets that we're competing with. So with that, thanks for the opportunity to close today. Mia, I'll kick it back to you. And thanks for all the participants that are so encouraged to see this innovation economy evolve.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you to all of you who joined us today and to our panelists. We appreciate the time about these important issues. All of us are passionate about helping Arizona succeed and accelerate the great work that's already being done. I know $46 million a year, $46 million and $3 to $5 million sounds like a lot of money, but I think you have heard what a case has been made for the return on that investment. So again, thank you for all of your participation. If you dropped a question into the Q&A, we will be in touch. So look out for a follow-up from this event. And a big thank you to all of the panelists and the guests and the production teams who helped make this happen, along with the Arizona Innovator Stories you saw in the video today. It's part of PEI's mission to grow and amplify stories like that. So we look forward to sharing more with you as we continue to create platforms and pathways. You can visit at azpei.org/innovation investment if you want to learn more. And thanks all, I'm Mia Parrish, and it's been great to host the State of Innovation Summit with you today.